Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of The Professor, where insightful discussions meet expertise. Today, we are honored to have Ruben Lavi. Ruben is an about to graduate master's student of Applied Economics and Policy at the University of Windsor. I had the honor to be the instructor for Ruben in the summer of 2023. Ruben currently is working as a customer experience associate at TD Bank in Windsor, Canada. Prior to this, Ruben held the role of a relationship manager at the Bank of Africa in Ghana. Notably, Ruben holds a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of Ghana, and he is currently a CFA Level 2 candidate and also a Bloomberg certified professional. His wealth of experience and profound knowledge promises an enriching conversation ahead, which I'm personally very looking forward to it. Without further ado, good evening, Ruben. How are you doing?
Good evening, Professor Yahya. I'm doing very well. And good evening to all the viewers as well. I'm glad that you have me today on your program, and I'm also looking forward to a very insightful talk.
Ruben, I will ask you the traditional question. Tell us about the background. How did things go in Ghana from the high school to the university, and then you ended up by thinking of coming to Canada? Tell us more about that background, please.
In high school was the point at which I realized that I loved economics. It was in high school that I took my first economics class and I was like, wow, this is interesting. This is very relatable. And I decided to pursue economics through in the university. So I actually chose to take economics in my undergrad. And after taking that, at that point, I went into banking. But then we will soon find out as we go on in this interview how things unraveled, and I decided to take economics in my master's as well.
So tell me
But
more about the high school. Like this interest in economics, was it triggered by a teacher who really just pushed the boundaries with you in economics? Where did this passion started?
yeah, the teacher did a great job of explaining what these things are. And I don't know, for some reason, everything was so clear in my mind. Like, I just, like, okay, if this is this, then that must be that.
Okay.
If the prices go down, demand goes up. Like, it was just very relatable. It's so I think the teacher did his good job of teaching very well, and it struck a good note in me, right? So yeah, I just
That's good. And then
went
you
into
decided to go to a Bachelor of Economics, although most of the
yeah,
students will be afraid to tackle that kind of a discipline because we know that economics is not an easy discipline. It's a scary
yeah.
discipline, and most of the large economists call it a scary discipline as a fact. So, how did you encounter such kind of a fear from just getting specialized in a core science like economics?
Everyone that took economics in their bachelor's knows that economics has a lot of mathematics in it.
Yeah.
And if your math is not good, then you'd have problems in your economics, right? So my math wasn't so great when I was growing up, right?
Okay.
But there was a turnaround point in my life where a fellow student scored very well in math in the my basic school level. And I was like, wow, if he can do it, why can't I do it? So I decided consciously to study,
Okay.
right? And funny thing, my mom was a math teacher,
Interesting.
right? So she's like, Ruben, you're smart. You just don't study. So
As every mom
I,
tells us, right? Yeah.
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 So I made a conscious effort to start studying, and my math went up so fast. So I did very well in my math, and I did very well in my economics. My grades when moving from senior high school to the university, you get it. So I knew that if I could do well in mathematics, when I started at a point where my math was so bad,
Yeah.
then I can do well in economics.
Interesting.
And I
Interesting.
faced it and I did it.
That's good. That's good because math and economics are a very interrelated disciplines. And as you said, if
Yeah,
you're not good at math, you will struggle in economics since
yeah,
economics basically lies behind basic intuition. And if you cannot make it up in mathematical foundations, it will be difficult. So you took your bachelor's. Was it in the same city in your hometown in Ghana, or you had to?
yeah. It was in the same city.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Then that was a 4 years program.
4-year program. Yeah.
Okay, was you on the top of the class, average or above average? How do you rate
Okay.
yourself?
So interesting thing. Um, I was, I think, a few points below the first class.
Oh,
Um, so yeah, just a few points, about 2 points
okay.
below getting the first class.
Yeah. And then you had your first job at the Bank of Africa, or this was your first job?
This was my very first job. So when I was done with school, interesting thing, I wasn't actually looking for a job in the bank, right?
Okay.
I went to the bank for an internship. Yeah, so the manager that I worked with felt he liked my performance
Okay.
and my general demeanor, my understanding, and my execution of work. So what he did was he recommended me to be kept on by the bank.
Interesting.
And then, yeah, so right from then, they put me in the role of managing relationships of the bank's customer portfolios. So it was from investment portfolios. I did investment portfolios of customers, mostly fixed income, and also I worked on wealth management, like so customers' deposits, their day-to-day needs, loan processing, cross-border trades, a host of many things, a host of things. It was a lot. It
That's
was a
quite a
lot.
jump because I understand Bank of Africa is one of the leading banks. So they operate around 18 countries. It's a Moroccan
Yeah,
bank, but has a huge existence in both East and West Africa, even in some
yeah,
operations in France. So
yeah.
actually, to be jumping right from the bachelor's to that position in the bank is quite a jump, quite a leap.
Yeah.
Then tell me, so you have a stable job. I guess you have income that's most probably higher than most of your colleagues.
Yeah.
Where does Canada come from?
That's good. So here's the thing. So while I was working in the bank, I,
Yeah.
I started thinking like, so what is next? What is next for me, right? So I run into a friend and he told me that there's this program that is so good. He literally said it was the creme de la creme.
Okay.
So he told me about the CFA. That's for those watching that do not know what the CFA is, it's the Chartered Financial Analyst Program. And he told me about it, and he said to read about it. And if it interests me, I should take it and that I would like it. So
Okay.
I went to do my research and I was like, this is very interesting. And then again, I had no accounting background, right? Because it was economics.
Yeah.
So it was going to be a challenge for me. But then I like my challenges. So I decided that, yeah, I could do well in this because there is a deep need for understanding and analysis,
Yeah.
which is where I like.
Yeah.
So it's something I feel I can wake up to every morning, and no matter how much it beats me down, I can do it.
Hmm.
Yeah. Now, when I started reading the CFA, I needed to have practical experience.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, so with this charter, where am I headed with this charter? So I realized that maybe I would want to practice in the capital markets or portfolio analysis or equity research, all those capital market related stuff, buy side, sell side, whichever works. But then also in my country, this market is not very developed.
Hmm.
Exactly. So if I said that I have a CFA and I met with someone from another part of the world, how was I going to measure up? So I was
Okay.
like, okay, I need to make a move and go somewhere that I can learn and be just as good or be internationally competitive. But there were many countries I could have chosen from, right?
Yes. Yes.
But it was easier for me to choose Canada because, like, my sister was already here.
Okay.
Yeah, so I wasn't going to move into a place that was entirely
Strange.
like I wasn't going to get support, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to move into a place where I could still access what I wanted to access
Yes.
and then get the necessary support that I needed. Yeah.
It's very
So that,
interesting that the CFA, that's the first time I hear it, that the CFA did not only push you to just study and focus on the exam and passing the levels, but it actually changed your perspective
my
of just
life.
not staying in your
Yeah.
country. You need to move and be internationally competitive. That's the first time. That's very interesting. So you decided to
Yeah.
move to Canada because your sister is
Yes.
here. Is your sister in Windsor or somewhere else?
No, she's in Nova Scotia.
Oh, okay. So why Windsor
Yeah.
then? Why University of Windsor Masters of Economics and Applied Policy?
I applied to three schools. I
Okay.
applied to three schools, right? The reason I ended up in Windsor was because the admission came quickly.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, but I chose Windsor as part of the three schools because it was one of the schools that had a high admission rate.
All right. All right.
Yes. So it was purely coincidental.
Interesting.
Yeah,
By the way, that's
purely.
most of Windsor students because that applies to me when I was back in the days masters in the management in the global finance perspective. And then that happened to me. That happened to most of the students coming to Windsor. That this was
Yeah,
not our initial plan, but then
yeah,
things changed. Interesting.
yeah, yeah.
And this semester is your last and fourth semester. You're about to
Yes,
submit everything in a matter of days.
everything. Yeah.
Tell me about the first moments, like when you flew from Ghana to Canada. What was your first impressions when you landed in an airport and then finding yourself in a totally different country, totally different perspective, totally different culture? How was that moment?
Well, I was tired.
Okay.
It was a
From the jet lag. Yeah, yeah.
it was a 23-hour flight. I was
Wow.
tired.
What was the route? How did you fly?
So I went from Accra to Ethiopia
Okay.
and then from Ethiopia to Canada, but we touched down at Dublin in Ireland.
Okay.
Yeah, before coming here. So it was a
Wow.
23-hour flight and I
Wow.
was tired. Yeah. But when I arrived, well, I was curious to see what this country offered. Like I was curious
Okay.
because I'd seen many things online. Canada is beautiful. Canada is this. Canada is that. I was like, okay, we'll find out,
We'll
right?
see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, by the time when I left the airport, I got a shared ride from the airport to my Airbnb, right?
Yeah.
When I arrived between the airport and the Airbnb, I was the saddest person ever.
Wow.
Yeah, I was the saddest person ever because
Why?
really, I was contemplating. I just left a very stable job.
Yeah.
Did I make the right decision coming here?
Okay.
It
Okay.
was all in my mind, right? Okay. Now, the cab driver that brought me told me so many things he didn't like over here.
Wow. Wow.
It's like, wow, maybe I did make a bad decision.
Okay. Okay.
You get it? So he told me everything that how there's not enough work-life balance
Yes.
and all sorts of things. And I was like, okay, maybe it was a bad decision. Now I got to my Airbnb and it took me about 2 weeks to get a place to rent. So in my mind, that just reassured how bad my decision was.
Okay.
But um, good thing is there was a turnaround moment for me where I was like, I can either be sad about whatever I'm thinking, or I can man up and make things right.
Yes.
Yes. So at that point, I decided that, look, whatever it is that someone says is their opinion. And I'm sure people are here and they are making it, they are living fine. So I was gonna do the very best I could with everything I had and make the best out of it.
You know,
So yeah,
that's a very important highlight because that's a life
yeah,
lesson I learned. I used to live in so many places outside my home country, and it is a repeating story that whenever you ask people about a place, the first thing that usually people say is complain after complain after complain. And if you left your mind and ears to such kind of a narrative, you actually lose hope and lose confidence in yourself. But if you
yeah,
just we have to keep reminding ourselves that that's just only a perspective. It doesn't mean
true.
that your opinion should affect mine. I should build up my own narrative. And then if two people living door to door, maybe someone is having an opposite experience from the other. So we should build our own narrative. That's a good
Yeah,
point you highlighted.
yeah.
And then that was all in Windsor, or you had to relocate.
All in Windsor.
All right, all right. And
Yeah.
then when the turning point happened, did you start immediately the school, or what was the
Immediately.
timeline?
So when the turning point happened, I think we just had our very first class. Um, and I needed a job, right? Because like the money I had, it was enough to take me for like 6 months or more, you
Okay,
know? Yeah, so I actually brought enough to take me for close to a year.
all right.
Yeah, so however, if you don't get an extra source of income, if you don't get a source of income, those funds are going to dwindle and you're not going to have anything left, right? Yeah,
Of
so
course, of
I
course.
needed to get a job, and I needed to do well in class, right? So I started looking for a job effectively I actually started looking for jobs in Canada from Ghana.
Wow. You made an online search thing, huh?
Yeah, but
Right.
that worked. Nobody got back to me.
You know,
But
that's a very good tip, by the way, because I listened to this from many prospective students that let's apply from our own countries. And then whenever we are
yeah,
there, when I got put some of our friends' numbers, it doesn't work like that. You have to be in
yeah,
the country in order to know more what you're applying for and be ready for an interview. So it's good that you confirmed that perspective.
yeah. Nobody got back to me. I actually used my number in Ghana. I didn't even use anybody's number here.
Okay, that's why nobody ever got back to you. Yeah.
I used my Ghanaian address, everything. Like,
Okay, okay,
yeah, but nobody got back to me. But it's fine. One of the places I applied to was TD,
okay.
and
From the Ghanaian number and
yeah,
all right, all right.
nobody got back to me, and it's fine. Like here I am today, right? So,
Yes, yes.
um,
So you
yeah.
started
So
applying and searching for a job, and then
yes,
you are now working in TD. And by the way, for the people who's watching us and do not know a lot about TD, TD Bank is a very competitive bank, commercial bank in Canada. It's one of the top four banks operating in Canada. It's actually between number one and number two, RBC and TD. And even from a student perspective, the most common question that I get during classes is how do we get a job? How do we get a job? And how so Ruben got a job in TD, which is quite very competitive. So tell us more about this. How was the interview process? What did you make about your resume to get a job in TD? Tell us more about this.
okay. So to start with, my initial attempt when I got here, my initial attempt to get into TD was when I was going to open my student account.
Okay.
So, yeah, I remember walking into the banking hall and I looked around and I was like, I can do this. Like, this is very similar to what I used to do back home.
Okay.
So I asked for the manager. So I saw a gentleman walk by and I was like, excuse me, I'd like to speak with the manager.
Okay.
And then he was like, I am the manager.
Which branch was that?
It was on Randolph,
Okay. Okay.
just next to the university.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So he was like, I am the manager. And I was like, oh, great. I've got 7 years of banking experience, specifically retail banking. And I definitely can do whatever needs to be done in the branch.
All right.
Yeah. And he was like, okay, bring your resume. And I'm like, oh, great.
It's
So,
that easy. Yeah.
yeah, so
But it took some courage that you just upsell
yes, yes,
yourself
yes,
and
yes.
sell yourself to the manager.
Yeah,
That takes a lot of courage. Yeah.
yeah. The first time I ever did that was in Ghana. Um, yeah, and the second time I did it was here, right? I walked to a firm and I was like, I have this, I have this, I have this, and I can do this job. And I met the director and was like, okay, here's my card, call me. And yeah, so we've been talking till date, and he's a great guy. He recently just moved to Vancouver
Okay.
from Ghana as well. Yeah, he's been doing very well in wealth management. Yeah. But back to the story. So when I met the manager and I brought my CV the next day, and it
Okay.
was like, okay, go home and apply online.
All right.
I went home and I applied online. But the position that I applied for in the particular branch that was advertising it, I did not get called back.
Okay.
Yeah. But then there was another opening, the same position in a different branch.
All right.
For that, I got called back. I took my first interview over the phone.
Okay.
Yeah, and I thought I messed it up.
Apparently no, because you got the
I
job.
thought I
Yeah.
messed it up, yeah. But then they called me for the second interview, and I took the second interview, and they thought I did so well.
All right.
They actually put me on top of the list.
That's good.
However, yeah, but then my availability wasn't great.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so they gave the opportunity to someone else and they put me on the waiting list and advised me that when my availability became better, I should just inform them. So in the summer of 2023, I called them up. I'm like, oh, my availability is improved. So I'm available to work. And they're like, okay, we'll get back to you. So they sent me another invitation for an interview. This time it was in person,
Okay.
and this was pretty different. It was a group interview,
Yes.
and yeah, they gave us a project to work on. And while you were doing the project, they'll pick someone out, and then they'll go interview the person, and then you come back, you join the project, and yeah, at the end of the day, things went well. We finished the project, we presented, and in 2 days they got back to me that yeah, I've been selected for the role, and yeah, that was how it started.
That's interesting. So
Yeah,
the next, most probably the follow-up question is, how did you manage this relationship between banking and working and studying and having to commute and take care of yourself and
yeah.
studying the CFA? So what is your tips when if someone is looking to do the same as you're doing?
I would say the very first thing is knowing yourself. Knowing yourself is a very important thing.
Yeah.
Knowing how you operate, knowing how quick you are to understand things, knowing how slow you are, like just basically understanding how you operate so that you
Okay.
can play on your strengths and leverage on those ones so your weaknesses are not so elevated.
Yeah.
Now the second thing is to plan. Now with the knowledge of how you operate and the time schedule available to you, the constraints, the things you have to do, the next thing is to plan.
Yes.
Making a good plan is very, very essential. Um, I cannot stress it more than it needs to be stressed. Like it is a very important thing for you to be able to plan everything. I literally plan, I plan almost everything that I do, and I plan into the future. So even getting the job in TD, I planned, okay, what if there were times that I was supposed to miss class? What was I gonna do? How was I gonna make up for it? Fortunately, I didn't have to miss class because TD was very flexible with their scheduling. Yeah. So I didn't have to miss class for anything. But I planned for it. So if he had come, I still would have been able to work and still kept my grades up in school. So
That's good.
planning was
Yeah.
everything for me. Yeah.
I can clearly connect with what you're saying because I remember one of the most important things that I had to learn once I migrated here was that I had to keep a diary, a to-do list, and this diary had kept growing and larger and larger. Sometimes it spans 2 pages, and sometimes it's a half a page. But that ongoing thing is that since we are not in our home countries, we have to be preparing for a lot of continuous stuff that has to
Yeah.
do. I have to catch this deadline for applying for X, Y, and Z, and then do the job, and then go to class. And so that's the first generational immigration huge list comes. It goes longer, never it goes shorter. So
Yeah.
right now you're almost 1.5 to 2 years in Canada, and you're about to graduate this semester. I guess the convocation it's in April, May, within
Yeah,
the
next year. Yeah.
congratulations in advance.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
If you look back at the previous 1.5, 2 years, and you want to tell yourself some kind of a mistake or an error that you did, and you want to avoid such an error, if you had the chance to look in the future to warn
Mhm.
yourself from such an error, what would be that thing?
Okay. Yeah, I think I have the perfect thing to warn myself about. It'd be one to actually look to get some Canadian work experience.
Okay.
Now, someone would ask, how do you get work experience in Canada when you're not in Canada?
Yes.
What I would do is to pick a program that, yes, I liked, but had internship opportunities.
Okay.
Yes, because I've come to realize I've applied for so many jobs. Like since I got to Canada, I've applied for many, many jobs. And they're jobs that I think I qualify for.
Yeah.
However, it's hard to demonstrate if I do not have Canadian work experience in
Hmm.
that role.
Okay. On that
Um,
specific role, not Canadian work experience in general, you mean?
yes, no, in that specific role. So
Okay.
let's say that I want to go into the capital markets.
Yes.
I picked a program that had the internship opportunity. I'd look to do internship in the capital markets so
Okay.
that after school, I can leverage on that and get into the capital markets.
Got you.
Because then I can say, in Canada, I have experience in this particular firm that does exactly the same thing you do.
Yeah.
So I have knowledge that I can apply and experience that I can offer to your firm. And it makes the case much more solid than for someone that does not have experience in a particular role
Yeah.
and wants or a particular industry and wants to get in fresh. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's just harder.
That's very enlightening because most people think that Canadian work experience in general should be the key. But if you are looking to work in a very detailed, high level job, professional job, absolutely what you're saying is true. If they have two candidates and just one of them is listing that they had a previous experience in that particular job in Canada, that always puts some additional perspective onto that candidate. And
Yeah.
that will lead me to the next question. What's next? What are your plans?
I've registered for my CFA level 2 exam, which is due next year.
All the best. All the best.
I just have to finish with my exam next week
Yeah.
and continue my preparation for the exam. There's a chance that it will be with TD. Yes, because TD has assets and wealth management, and they've
Yes.
also got TD securities, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I could more easily just move within TD, but who knows if the opportunity comes somewhere else, well, we might just move. But then as long as we're meeting the goal, yeah, that's what it's gonna be.
And from your experience, do you think that moving to the Great Toronto area or GTA will improve your chances? Or what do you think about the market in Windsor compared to the GTA area?
Very, very definitely moving to GTA gives an added advantage.
Yes.
Yes, it definitely does. I'd say this because I got an interview with a firm, the TMX Group. They
Yeah.
run the Toronto Stock Exchange.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and I interviewed with them very well. However, I didn't get selected because I'm not in
Oh,
GTA.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, so definitely, yes, they need people that can be there, especially when it's not a remote opportunity.
Yeah.
They need people that can be available to them or that can be called upon at short notice. So moving to GTA definitely gives an upper hand. Plus, GTA is it's an area that is has a high concentration of certain jobs.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so then it gives you more options to pick from, and you can more easily network. There are more activities that you can go to and then have more networks in there in GTA. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. The only thing is maybe you might have to consider the cost of living in GTA.
Yes. Yes. Much
Yeah,
higher
you
than
have to
elsewhere.
plan for that. Yeah.
That's the main obstacle. Although Toronto and GTA in general, it is the financial hub in Canada. However, you have to make your calculations very carefully since, yes,
Yeah,
there is an upscale in income, but you have to take care of the housing cost and be able to match. But you will
that's
manage it,
true.
I'm sure. I'm sure. My last question, Ruben, and that's a typical question in all my interviews. So let's say that someone right now in Accra or in any other city in Ghana who's watching this
Mhm.
YouTube and might think, oh, I cannot do what Ruben did because I'm afraid or I'm not able to take the risk. I want you to send them a message in your mother tongue, in your own language, so that whenever they hear that, they know that they can do it similar to you. And I'm gonna leave it up to you.
Okay. Well, before I continue,
Yeah.
before I say anything, there are a number of languages spoken in my country,
All right.
uh, but then I think English is more common to a lot more people in
It's
Ghana.
up to you. It's up to you. Whatever makes
Yeah.
you feel comfortable. Absolutely.
Okay. Because like if I spoke my typical language, then like a lot of people are probably not going to understand it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes me one of them. Go ahead, my friend. Go
So
ahead.
yeah. So what I want to say is anything can be done. Once you plan well for it, you can do it. If you need information, it is always best to go to the source. And if you feel like you're not motivated enough to take on a large task, always remember this. The Japanese have this thing called they call it kaizen, where you break large tasks into small pieces. Small pieces that psychologically make you see them as doable. And then when you take each piece, once you keep fixing each and every piece, by the time you're done, you'd realize that you've done a very big thing. So you don't always have to tackle a large task head on. You just have to break it into smaller pieces. And personally, that is how I've lived my life. I take big things, I break them down into smaller pieces, and then I work it all out. If I look back to my school application and my visa application and all that, which I've never done before, I'm like, given all the knowledge that I had to start with, I most likely would not have started if I saw it as a large task. Trust me. Yes, I finished everything, got to Canada and looked back and I was like, you know what? Maybe I probably would have decided to stay home
Wow.
if I knew how difficult this was going to be. However, by doing it one by one, I've been able to do it. And here we are today. So, yeah, that is all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your
Uh,
insights, your experience. You cannot imagine how valuable this kind of a feedback and insights come from you that will benefit an endless number of people. The beautiful thing about these kind of recordings or videos is that there is no potential, and we do not know for life how many prospective
yeah.
students will see this, how many people will benefit out of it. So I cannot
Mhm.
thank you enough, Ruben, and I'm sure everyone who watches this cannot thank you enough for your insightful experiences, your feedback, your sharing your lifetime stories. That is, I'm 100% sure that is quite motivating for everyone. I would like to thank you so much for your time. It's been always
Well,
a
thank
pleasure
you.
to speak to you, always an honor to have this deep discussions with you. And finally, I would like to thank our audience for tuning up to this episode. We promise you that we will be keeping up having this good discussions with a lot of my connections, my students, another university connections. We'll stay tuned for future episodes. Thank you, Ruben. Thank you, our audience, and
You're
see you in the
welcome.
next episode.
All
Bye-bye.
right.